Welcome to Talks with Summer, seeing the world through the eyes of another. Today I have with me Barbra Banner, an evidential psychic and trance medium based in Los Angeles. She is known for delivering uplifting, high-vibration readings filled with love, laughter, and lightness. Barbra has volunteered for over 4 decades in trauma and grief on a women's crisis hotline in a top Los Angeles emergency room and with the city's crisis response team, supporting families and witnesses at the scene of a passing. Through this work, she discovered that being of service to those in crisis was her true purpose. Barbra specializes in family trauma, unfinished business, automatic writing, and children in spirit, making her a remarkable guide between worlds. She is also a certified medium with the Helping Parents Heal organization and is listed on Mark Ireland's Certified Medium Directory. It is my honor to have you with me today, Barbra. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I being a medium was the last thing I ever thought about. I had no idea. It came to me very late in life. And Spirit just made me aware that they were trying to get my attention through a lot of paranormal, wacky things going on in the house and lights flashing in a fan that we didn't turn on going, a gazillion miles an hour, things flying off shelves. My mother-in-law's picture on the mantle, throwing itself down and breaking. Later on, I asked when I was a medium, I said, why did you do that? She said, I needed more attention. So I had nothing to do with it, all right? Anyway, all these signs and orbs flying around, I just realized, okay, Spirit is trying to get my attention. So I took a class with Suzanne Giesman, and she's such a wonderful teacher. And like within 7 months, I hung a shingle. I was doing readings and donating them, and it went very fast because they say that you get what you're supposed to do when your soul is ready. So I guess it took time before I was ready. But now I can't imagine not doing this every day, just doing readings and helping people.
I'm very curious because you mentioned it came on later on in life, and my next question is a little bit from what I would like to know more also is, where did you grow up? Tell us about your childhood days.
Okay, I grew up in Los Angeles. I had this lovely childhood with, wonderful, loving parents. I felt like I had a charmed life. I went to amazing schools like USC, UCLA, and had great jobs. It was just, everything was, it's almost like I didn't have much karma to get rid of in this lifetime. And I thought that maybe this is going to be the last one, But no, I found out that that's not how it works. It could mean that I'm having a good time just resting on this lifetime, but the next one's going to be a doozy. It's going to be horrific. So not to get my hopes up.
So I'm curious because I asked you about your childhood, and in terms of mediumship and in terms of your psychic senses, was there anything that used to happen during your childhood or something which would make you take notice or certain fears or something like that? So I'm curious.
Little things. First of all, I was not one of those babies who saw orbs, in the crib, or had an imaginary friend, that was real to them. But around my middle school, I felt a little different. I just felt different. I felt like I was intuitive. And I said to my friends, I think I'm a witch. I didn't know what else to call it. I didn't know what a medium was, at 12. And then it, all subsided. I still felt I was intuitive. But nothing, I was infatuated. I was besotted by paranormal stuff. I would watch TV shows that had it. I would watch, in that day, like Sylvia Brown was the big medium. I would watch her show and John Edwards. So I was always fascinated by spirituality, but I didn't do anything about it. I didn't think that my purpose and my life would be all about that. But I was divinely guided to all of those volunteer jobs because I had all this training from everything. And it didn't all come together till the pandemic. And then it all they just hit me over the head with a mallet, and I sprung back to life.
Yes, the pandemic was quite the turning point in, I think, so many lives, and mine too. Yes.
Oh.
What motivated you to do what you do? Or in other words, how did you take this path in life that you are on now? I know you answered that a little bit, but can you tell us more about your volunteer jobs and how they played a role into your work?
I had no idea I always wanted to do volunteer things where it wasn't just writing a check, where I could roll up my sleeves and be with people and really do something that made a difference. So the Women's Hotline was a perfect place to, you got like a summer of training with therapists and all sorts of professionals. And that was fascinating. I did that for 14 years. And then I moved on to an emergency room in a hospital. I grew up in a hospital because my father owned medical labs and all of that. So it was very comfortable for me. And then somebody told me about the crisis response team with the city. And I thought it sounded fascinating. And I figured I can do this, I can be on the scene with a dead physical body. And the training was so extensive, every kind of passing, whether it was suicide or being hit by a car. We had experts in every kind of field and grief and how to tell children that somebody passed. It was just an amazing, amazing experience for me. And my friends would say, why are you doing that? I mean, I was on call in the middle of the night. I would rush it was crazy. And I loved it. I loved it. I was right there on the worst day of somebody's life. And it was a very big responsibility that I took on, but I was up to the task. And that I did for, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years. And then when I started to be a medium, I thought, well, I'm doing the same thing and I don't have to get up at 2 a.m. unless spirit wakes me up. So I put the response team on the side, and maybe some other year or lifetime I will pick it up again. But I really love working one-on-one.
So tell us a little bit more about that, because when I read your profile and your bio, I was very drawn to the Women's Crisis Hotline and also the crisis work that you've just told us about. And does the fact that you're a medium and your awareness of the body is not there anymore, but consciousness or spirit or soul is continuing on, did that help in that certain aspect? Or
no?
Okay.
Didn't have anything to do with it. There's no way that I could have just gone to one of the mother of the deceased child on the scene and said, I see your son, okay, he's going to be fine. That's not my job, okay? And that would have been very inappropriate. So I wasn't there at the time of death, so I can't say I saw his soul go up or anything. I was there to support them, what they needed. And I couldn't use anything. It helped me support them because I could frame things in a way that maybe made things softer for them or had hope. So, but I couldn't really say, I see your son and he's fine. I couldn't do that. I would have been fired from a volunteer job. It was just everything I did just gave me such a breadth of information and experience in all the things that put people in crisis, from domestic violence and homelessness and anything that could happen. We studied so that we had a background in it.
But on a personal level, did it affect you personally? Because there's so much pain. Everybody's going through pain. The families are going through pain. And then you were there, did it affect you at a certain level where you would take on some of that pain? It's like one of my friends is a doctor, and I ask her this: how do you keep yourself sane?
I didn't let it affect me. I was able to compartmentalize, and whatever I knew, whatever I thought was not important. I was in the moment with the person I was dealing with. My friends would always say, Barbara, why are you doing this? You're getting up at 3 a.m. You're freezing cold, standing in the rain with a body. Why are you doing it? I said, because I can. There's not everybody could do that. They would be, crying with the pain. I just felt that I feel like I'm at my best when someone else is at their worst. That's one of the things that I feel like the way I can help is to just be there and not I think only once or twice in the years that I did the crisis response team did I cry, like on the way home. And it always had to do with children.
Can you tell us more about your work as a psychic, evidential, and trance medium?
Well, people usually say, what's the difference and what do you use? So in a mediumship reading, I'm an evidential medium, which my job is to give the client evidence that their loved one, their consciousness still lives on. The body may be gone, but all the things you love about them, your little son's smile and, his playfulness and how he used to hug you, all of that remains. All of that remains. It's just the physical body that's not there. And that's what they miss the most. So evidential, I give them things like, I tell them, your son said, you didn't pick up that penny yesterday. And she said, oh my God, I walked over a penny, because his birth year was on it, and so they let them know that they're with them because they are. They tell them things so they know, I know what's going on in your head. I know what's going on in your life. I am there. I'm the one who closed the blinds when you walked in. I did this. Those lights that are flickering, that's me saying, hi, Mom. So that's the evidential part of it. And I fill in blanks. There's a lot of people who somebody passes and they weren't there at the time, and there's things that were left unsaid. That's where a medium can come in. When the person passes, they know everything you're worried about that they didn't know. Okay, they know you wanted to say this. They know that you felt that. They know it all. But for the person who didn't get to say it, they feel that they need to say it to them. So that gives them an opportunity, and the spirit also gives them an opportunity to just let them know, I know, and I'm with you, and I'm protecting you, and you can count. Just ask me what you need, and I'm going to help you. They can put things in our mind. Psychic comes in for me when somebody mentions somebody who's alive. So if I say, who's Julie? She'll say, well, that's my sister. I said, Julie's going through something really heavy right now and needs your help. And they'll tell me, yeah, we haven't spoken in like 5 years. I said, she really needs you. So your mother really would like you to reach out to her and not let this go on. Because when you get to the other side, you're not bringing your diamond necklace with you. You are just bringing your memories and the love, and you want to solve that before you come up there. Even though when you get up there, you're not going to be mad at each other because all you feel is love, and there's no judgment that, she was nasty. That all goes, we're all just playing parts here to learn lessons and to experience things. So she did a good job, obviously. Oh, and trance. So one of the options I have is doing a regular mediumship reading and including a trance message from the person that they'd like or their higher self. And it's like I want to stay out of it myself, get my head out of it, because when you start thinking, that's when you're not you're not getting the messages. You know, if your brain is, you're using your brain, you're not hearing from spirit. So I sort of put myself out of the picture and I just sink down and I give them a message, hopefully of something that will guide them or let them know whatever is needed at the time. And when I snap out of it, I don't remember what I said. I always just say, I hope it resonated. And they usually just say, absolutely, it's what I needed to hear. So spirit knows what you need to hear. Even a lot of times, because I have a Q&A during it so that you can ask them questions. Sometimes we just talk a lot before, and by the time I get to the Q&A, they'll say, my dad answered every question I had in my head without me asking him, because they can, you know. So the Q&A is usually good. And when somebody passes and they don't really know what happened, one of the things that I usually can do is, like, you know, on a crime scene or something, they could put a chalk mark around how the body position was. I say, well, when your father passed, you know, in the bed, all of a sudden his head just went like that. She'll say, yeah, it did. So I can answer some questions about the passing that they'll show me. And they usually show me, unless there's a reason. I had one father who had taken his own life. I was with the mother and his daughter, who was a teenager. And she said, tell me what happened. And he wouldn't show me. And I didn't know why, or he wouldn't go there. And then she just thought, okay, you don't know how to do that. Anyway, afterwards, he came to me after the session was over. He came to me and he showed me that, you know, he had the way he committed suicide. And I realized he didn't want to do that in front of his daughter because his daughter didn't yet know what happened. So I just trust that spirit is going to give you what you need to know now. And if there's a reason they don't, let it go. They know the reason.
So a couple of questions which came to my mind as you were speaking were, the first one is this, that as a medium, as you are a medium, does it happen to you that you would do readings for your own self? Because as I hear you, as I listen to you, I can catch that feeling of emotion being out of your work. And that helps it to flow more. Whereas someone like me who's taking classes and something, I cannot keep emotion out of my process. So it's a different thing altogether. I'm not doing anything professionally in terms of this, but I'm very curious of that aspect because I've lost my mother and my older brother too. And I can sense, I can connect to my mother very easily and I can get the messages and I can, but that's on a very personal level. I'm not a professional. So I wanted to know more from you as a professional. When it's mediumship happens for your own self, does that bring up that space of emotion?
No, a lot of mediums don't. It's hard to read yourself because we can question it. Usually when I want some information about whatever, me or whatever, I'll go to a psychic medium friend of mine and we'll swap. She'll come to me if someone comes to her to solve a murder or something. You know, we work with each other on things like that. I've done trance to talk to my higher self, and my trance mentor has taken me with one of his meditations where I connected with my mom and told him what we did, and it was a little emotional. I said, that's not the way my mom was when she was down here. He said, well, she is very happy. I don't. I've heard everything, and I've processed it enough where there's not much they can say that's going to upset. Well, they're not going to say anything that upset me anyway. That's not what they're here for. But sometimes, I could get teary with when I'm conversing with my father or something. And also when I do a little ritual before I start meditation where I just talk about my gratitude for the other side giving me this opportunity of helping so many people and educating them. And I can get teary for that. My gratitude and love for my team on the other side can get me. That's about the only thing that can get me very emotional, because it's profound how much I appreciate the opportunity to do this and to find my purpose in life, because they say if you find your purpose in life, you will not age. I'm 110, can't you tell? And that you won't get sick. So those are two big bonus things. So I'm sticking with this. This is my purpose.
So the other question which had come to my mind was that in regards to your work, in regards to mediumship, so we are calling upon someone who's in spirit. And I'm sure there are times when there's no response. It's like calling out to a person and people answer. But then what about those instances, or have you had those experiences when you're trying to call upon someone or a loved one and they do not want to communicate for whatever reason?
It's very rare. I do it a little different than most people. Most people just say, "We'll see who comes out." I from my last training in the UK at the Arthur Findlay College of Spirituality, I changed the way I did it. I know that whoever's coming to see a medium, there's somebody they really want to connect with. It's rare when someone says, "I didn't have anything to do. I think I'll go spend such and such and go sit with a medium." Okay, that's not what happens. I always ask them, who is it you'd like to see and what is their relationship to you? I just want to cut through the BS and get right to the point. And almost always the person they want comes right through. And I just describe who they are, and they know exactly who it is. I said, "I've got this guy, and he's got like the maracas, and there's like, conga music playing, and he's laughing in the music, and there's a conga line behind him, and he's being silly." She goes, "That's my father." She said, "I actually have a photo of him when we were all on the cruise ship where he's got the congas and the line and everything." She said, "It's so like him to want to make his entrance just with that memory of that picture." So now sometimes somebody else comes and he'll say, that's not my dad, but I know who that is. Could be his uncle. And there's usually a reason, or I usually can tell if let's say his father lets his brother come forward. I would say, your father must be a very kind, giving man because he let his brother. And he'll go, "Yes, it's just like him to do that." They keep their essence. So sometimes somebody else, it's rare that the person they want doesn't come through. It could be it's too soon. I mean, everyone is different. Some mediums won't read somebody until they're 6 months because the person isn't ready to hear anything. And to have a really successful reading, you need all three of us, spirit, me, and the client, to have this good energy. If one of them is a little wobbly, it's not going to be what I know it can be. And if that happens, I'll go on for a little, and then I'll just say, "We need to reschedule this in a few days." And then it's really good. A lot of times that spirit will come to me and say, "Get your pen and paper. I got a lot to say." And they don't have whatever the issue was there. It's just him and me. And I write everything down. Sometimes it's like 2 pages, and I read it to the client when they come back and they say, "I can take everything." Yeah. That's completely him. So that happens sometimes where they know that sometimes they'll know that the client isn't ready, that their daughter isn't ready to hear all this or in the right mind frame, and they'll just make it so I move it to another day. And that doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does. If I have a bad day or anything can change it. I mean, energy is delicate. You can't, it needs to be a certain way for everything to be really spot on and important. I just know that spirit is going to tell you what you need to know now, not always what you want to know. Some people say, what color were my pajamas the night my husband died? I'll ask them, and if they want to give me an answer, they will, and if they don't think it's important, they won't. So, we mediums are not here to amuse anybody. It's a sacred honor, and we need to respect it like that. Although people do try to sneak in a little test without telling us. Would you like to hear one of them?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. So I brought this girl, and I brought in a guy, and I described him. He's goofy looking. He's got like reddish hair, and he's just got this goofy look on his face, and he's wearing like a checkered shirt. And I said, he looks like Howdy Doody. I don't know if you know that character. Howdy Doody was a dummy, a marionette. And he was just so goofy. And she said, well, that could be my father or my brother. I said, both of them look like that? I said, look, I love Howdy Doody, but I can't believe both of them had the same kind of look. And she said, and my father even had the space between his teeth. After this, go look up Howdy Doody, you'll laugh. So I said, okay, I need to get some information that will separate them, that you'll know. So I'm telling her a few things, then all of a sudden, I say, and I love to eat corn. And I stopped and I said, I didn't say that. I don't know how that came out of my mouth, because it's just out of the blue. She goes, actually, you've got my father. She said, while you were talking, I said, Dad, if it's really you, tell her what you like to eat. And he did. But so she was just testing, but it worked, because we found out that the guy who came was her dad, not her uncle or brother. So sometimes they try to stick in a little test. I've had somebody who, this is a sweet one, who lost her husband, and she, before the meeting, she said to him, if it's really you, mention the necklace. So we have this wonderful session, and it's right at the end. And I said, your husband is showing me putting a necklace on you. And I couldn't see that she was wearing a necklace. Okay. Her shirt was really high, and I had no idea she had a necklace on. And she said, oh my God. She goes, I asked my husband, I have goosebumps now. I asked my husband to mention the necklace if he was here. And she pulls out this necklace, and it has his wedding ring on it. She goes, I never take this off. So they had a little, like some people have like a secret word or something. And I'm talking crazy talk to somebody who isn't spiritually, knowledgeable. So I can understand that they want some proof. And so when spirit says they need it, then they get it.
What's the common misconception people have about mediumship?
That we are there to serve the client, that no matter what they want to ask us, that we're there to prove it to them. And that doesn't happen that much. There's some I'll give you a skeptic one that's usually like they want us to sort of perform, or they just have expectations of that we could just pull things out. What was his middle name? I don't know. I don't know. So that's one of the common misconceptions, that they can ask us, or being skeptical that they're not open, that it's okay for them to like sit there like this and ask us crazy stuff. I had a woman who was very skeptical, and everything I said, she would say, well, you could have read that in the paper. Well, that's pretty broad. That could be for more than one person. Everything I said, she gave me a negative comment about. because she didn't believe anything. And I ended the session early, gave her a refund. The next night, in the middle of the night, her husband came to me. I mean, I had him. I knew exactly what he looked like, who he was, everything. And I said, your husband came and he showed me a half of a toasted bagel that was scooped out. You know how people scoop out the middle of it? So save 4 calories of bread to put in 100 calories of tuna fish. Does that mean anything to you? And she was pissed. She goes, no, why are you calling me with that? That's ridiculous. You know, everyone scoops out their bagel. I said, okay, I'm just be aware that this is what he showed me. So, next week she got in touch with me. She goes, you're not going to believe this, because I didn't believe this. She said, I was at my in-laws, and my father-in-law, and this is, his son was the one that was her husband. My father-in-law said, I invented a product. And I have a prototype, and I'm going to show you, and maybe you'll understand what it is. So he shows her some contraption, and he says, do you know what it is? She said, I have no idea what that is. He said, it's a bagel scooper. She said, I told the family that you told me about a bagel, scooped out bagel, and they couldn't believe it. But it gave them so much joy to know that he's around her, and he knows, and he's around his parents, and he knows what everyone's doing, and to make his wife have a little more belief and civility about this whole thing. So spirit is, I have very, very humorous spirit guides, so we're well matched. So things like that, they show me funny things.
How can esotericism be used for personal growth and healing?
Our brain and our heart and our soul, they're responsible for everything. We have so much power inside of us we can make ourselves sick, we can heal ourselves, and if we put all of that energy and knowledge and belief system into place, we can do anything. It's really a matter of trusting that we are not humans, we are spiritual beings, and that anything is possible. I mean, if someone told me, 20 years ago what the other side is like, and that we're going to be talking to spirits, and I would have said, you're crazy. This is not Alice in Wonderland. We have a saying here that we used to have, is seeing is believing. That's what a skeptic would say. If I don't see it, I don't believe it. Well, that's not how it works in our business. It's believing is seeing. If you don't believe it, you are going to poo-poo it. Like, that can't be, no, I don't believe that. I had a woman, and I told her butterflies were from your son. And she said it wasn't the season or something. I don't know. But anyway, I was talking to her again, and I said, so any butterflies? And she said, well, there were a bunch of them, following me somewhere. And then one butterfly kept circling me. And I said, so did you realize that was your son? She goes, no. She goes, I realized that it must be butterfly migration time, or like mating season for butterflies, and they were all just coming around. I said, that's ridiculous. That's funny. Who could come up with that it's a butterfly migration system, when I told you it was butterflies that were going to be from him, and one was like in your grill, like looking at you. She said, yeah. She goes, oh, yeah. She just wasn't aware. We need to be aware that anything is possible. Anything is possible. And if you believe that, you can make that happen. People heal themselves from, stage 4 cancer. There's so much that we can do if we believe, and that we use the energy that's all around us.
Is there any incident which you would like to share which shaped your life?
When I was starting out, I was asked to do a reading for one of the Helping Parents Heal families who lost a son, young son. And this was the first person I read who lost a child like that. And in my readings, I give the client a chance to ask questions to spirit, to close the book on things or find out how they felt about it, depending. And I say the first question I'm going to hijack. And I don't want you to tell me what the question is. I want you to just think it in your mind. She said, okay. She goes, all right, I've asked my son something. I said, all right, I'll tell you what he's showing me. He's showing me himself riding on the back of a giant butterfly in heaven, flying around, dive bombing, laughing, having the best time of his life. I said, does that have anything to do with your question? And she said, absolutely. She goes, you're not going to believe this. She said, after my son died, I bought a book so that I could tell my daughter about her brother and where he was and what he was doing. And in the book, she said, there was a whole page that showed what a little boy could be doing on the other side. And it was a little boy riding on the back of a giant butterfly. That's what the book showed. So you could just imagine how that made me feel and how wonderful that made the mother feel, knowing that her child had put that question in her mind to ask, and that he was there, and he was there when she was reading the book to his little sister, and that it gave her hope that her son was not gone. He just went a little ahead of them. You understand? That to have some hope that she can connect with him and she can communicate. And it was just new. So she left on cloud 9, okay? And it made me realize working with parents who lost a child is really very sacred, because I can't even imagine anything that would be more horrific. And here's actually the picture she sent me. Hold on. That's what she sent me. And it just blew both of us away. So that was one of the most profound, and it made me want to go and get certified by them and do more for them.
I was going to ask you, but I think I can almost tell the answer, that when you work with people, it's hardest to work with people who have lost their children. And when they're passings, where the age of the soul is less, or young children or something. So I'm guessing that would be probably the hardest, right?
Yes, I do. Some people who lose their husband, if they had an amazing marriage, they can be, grief is really very personal. Some people can get over it quickly and just move ahead and just realize, if they're spiritual, just to know that this is what my husband wants for me. He wants me to move on and have a great life, and he's going to get married again. They have no jealousy there. It's all, we're just here, and if we're meant to be, we'll have another life together. So don't be jealous. Just want the best for the ones they love. So, yeah.
What is something which is very close to your heart, or what is something you're passionate about, other than your work and mediumship and all that you do?
Just family. My daughter. I mean, I could, just having a daughter so late in life was a real gift for me. And just knowing the value of friends, and not putting value on physical things or monetary things, because we're not taking any of those with us. We're just taking our memories.
Who has been the most influential person in your life, and how have they impacted you?
Oh, well, that's the same person,
Okay.
my daughter. Just learning about myself, about the extent and the depth of love, and doing something for somebody else and not caring about yourself. Just changing your priorities. They change your priorities of life from before I had a child. We were going to Europe every season and going to the Caribbean and just like living life, vacation and everything else. And it's nothing compared to having a child that you put first.
Is there any advice you would give your younger self looking back at your life now?
I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. I feel fortunate. But I think I would have liked to start this a little sooner so I would be more aware. I'd have more experience and more awareness and if I started this, 20 years ago, I could be a healer, I'd have more time. But as people came to me when I was asking questions about my path, it's stay on this. Don't start taking Reiki classes and shamanism and stick to this. This is your lane. So I would have had more time, but at this point, I'd probably be 100 before I got all those other things that I could have gotten in. So I would tell myself, hey, this is going to be in your future. Go start now. Start learning.
Is there any book, quote, or philosophy that has shaped your outlook on life?
Edgar Cayce says, we're not gone. We're just a little ahead of you. I love that. And Dolores Cannon says that we make ourselves sick and we can heal ourselves. I love that as well. And then one that has nothing to do with spirituality, but just with people in general, is from Benjamin Franklin. And he said, it is better to keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. That's just one of the things I like.
Yes. If it were an ideal world, what does that look like in your eyes?
No war. That we are past thinking that slaughtering other people is going to, or a piece of land is going to change our lives, or our egos. That just get your ego out of it. We have to do that when we're up there. That's one thing we have to learn. That just let everybody's here for a different reason. Just be accepting. Stop judging everybody. That's my perfect world where nobody judges somebody, that you can walk down the street with, a tuna fish can on your head and a Hawaiian outfit and nobody's going to say that guy's nuts. Okay. So that we just accept everybody for living their best life.
Yes.
And just have compassion because we don't know what's going on in their lives and how difficult they may have taken on in this lifetime.
Yes, and I like to say that all the time, and that's how my podcast actually took birth, was that everyone has a story and we don't know what that story is.
Exactly. And just be kind to everyone and then you're 10 steps ahead.
Yes. What is something that you would like the world to know about you, which you feel is often misunderstood?
Well, in a few classes that I took, the teacher I've had someone say, you shouldn't be so funny in a reading. This is very sacred and very serious, that what we do. And I didn't do it for any other reason than that that's who I am, that's my essence, that's my authentic self, and that I believe in raising people's vibrations during a reading because it makes a better spirit. Likes it. They like it when you say, I understand that. Yeah, that's really meaningful. They love it when everybody's talking and getting involved. That it's not trying to do anything. It's just being who I am. And then another teacher said, always be who you are. And that's the teacher that I listened to. He said, there's a medium on every corner, and they're good. It's not like they're all terrible or cheats. People will come to you because they're attracted to your energy. So I just am who I am. And, once another mentor said, because I said, I do question and answers and I don't want to know what the question is. And she said, you don't have to do tricks for people. I said, that's not a trick. I prefer not to know the question on the first one so I can get my head out of it so that I know that Spirit is answering that question and I don't even know what it is because it's almost always correct what they give. And she said, oh, I didn't understand that. So she thought that doing that was some kind of gimmick. So she understood that that's not what it was. It was just a way of keeping my conscious mind, my, calculating mind out of answering a question, making sure. Because that's, if our mind gets involved, it's not going to be as accurate. It has to just be pure spirit.
Yes. I am an artist, and I've been talking about that also a lot, that over the years of practice, I have finally found that space where I can consciously go into my practice and paint and have my mind out of it. And even if I sense that I have like 5% trickling in, I don't like what I paint then.
Right. See, you completely understand. It's not a gimmick. It's just a way to do a better job or just be more with spirit. So,
yes. So moving on to the last question, from your entire journey in life so far, what would you like to share with our listeners which you feel would be helpful to them?
Easy. Listen to your intuition. Don't always think that it's your imagination, that you heard your husband's name called, or that the doorbell that rang and no one's there isn't from one of your loved ones who just wants to let you know they're around. Trust that they want to be with you, that they want to communicate with you, that they want to help you. You have to ask for help, or they can't just come in and start cleaning up your closet, okay? But if you ask, then you could all, wake up one morning and say, today I'm going to clean my closet, and you don't realize that, that your mom is behind this whole thing. So you have to ask. You have to ask and just trust. I say, no matter how crazy Spirit gives me an answer, I am going to say it because they know more than I do. I had a little old grandma in spirit, and her granddaughter, we were doing a reading for grandma, and then the grandmother all of a sudden says, tell her she's got to do some phone sex for more money. And I said, I didn't say that. I've never said that in a reading before. I'm so sorry that... She goes, no. She goes, my husband and I have had a running joke about doing phone sex to buy new things for the house. As just a joke. And just the other day, I said, God, I really want to replace that chair. He goes, you're going to have to do phone sex. So it's just like my grandmother to bring that forward to let me know she's hanging around. And I guess she does want a new chair there because that's probably where she's sitting. Or trust. Just trust.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Barbra. Every time I do an interview, I take one thing that the guest says as a message for myself. And I think my message for today would be the word trust and the aspect of trusting more. So thank you so much for coming to my podcast. It was my pleasure. And I wish you the best with your journey forward and your purpose and your mission. Thank you.
And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, it's bannermedium.com.